Hey. Time for an out-of-this-world story from rSpace. Some people learn from their mistakes. Others just keep making them, hoping for a different outcome. Today on rSpace, lessons unlearned have a way of circling back, often hitting harder the second or third time around. At first, history repeats itself. Am I the a-hole for grounding my daughter and canceling her senior trip after I found out she was cheating on her boyfriend? I have two daughters, Lizzie, 17 female, and Mackenzie, 14 female. Their dad and I divorced a few years ago after I discovered he was having an affair. I have the kids most of the time, and their dad has them every weekend and during the summers. Lizzie has been dating Jacob, 18 male, for over a year now. Jacob is constantly at her house. He's a sweet, good young man, and I believe he'll be valedictorian of their class. However, a few weeks ago, I overheard Lizzie on the phone with a guy, clearly flirting. At first, I thought it was Jacob, but then I heard her say, Brandon. I realized she was talking to someone else. Then, a week later, she mentioned to me that she was heading out to hanging with a friend, and when I looked out her window, I saw her get into a car and greet a guy with a kiss. It wasn't Jacob. Even after that, Jacob continued to come over, hanging out with Lizzie. He and Lizzie still acting like a couple, holding hands, laughing, and spending time together, just like they always had. I felt disgusted knowing my daughter was being a two-timer. After Jacob left that day, I confronted my daughter. I asked her point blank, "Are you cheating on your boyfriend with another guy?" She said it was none of my business and that her personal life was hers only. I told her that she was wrong and that I raised her better than to treat people like this. She told me she was bored with Jacob and that Brandon was more her type now. I told her that if she wasn't happy, she should just break up with Jacob. She said she didn't know if she wanted to be with Brandon or if she was just having fun flirting and teasing. I told her cheating was unacceptable and wrong, and as a consequence, I grounded her. I also told her she wasn't allowed to go on her senior trip with her friends. She obviously did not take that too well and has been at her dad's place for the last couple of days. My ex-husband called me, saying I was being unreasonable not letting her go on the trip and that her and Jacob was just a high school thing. He then told me I needed to put my bitterness aside and stop punishing his daughter. I told him I was teaching our daughter right from wrong and that actions have consequences. Let's go dive into the community for some reactions, shall we? First up, is your daughter aware of the reason for the divorce? DOP replies, yes. Next comment, I'd recommend explaining that since cheating broke the family, you won't, under any circumstances, tolerate her cheating on her boyfriend, and emphasize the strain it puts on your relationship with her. Explain the pain you felt after finding out about the ex-husband's affair, and how her boyfriend deserves none of that just because she feels bored. You could also say that she's entitled to her own decisions, but her cheating severely disappoints and hurts you. Of course, you know your feelings better, but I tried to give you a rough framework for letting her know the actual weight of her actions. Heartbreak for boyfriend and a major problem in her relationship with her mother. Make her think about whether that momentary excitement is really worth the cost. This should work better than punishment, at least in the long run. Next person says, her wording was interesting. I almost feel like she asked her dad why he cheated on her mom, and that was his response. My nephew did something similar after his parents divorced, and it was like he opened his mouth and his father fell out. Here's another comment. She will probably learn to be better at cheating. What you're doing is not wrong, but I don't think it will work. And next, I'm probably older than you. Here's where I'm at. Cheating is a selfish, thoughtless thing to do to someone you ostensibly care about. However, dating is a personal journey, and your daughter is in high school. I think discussion about her bad behavior is fine. Maybe asking her how she'd feel if Jacob was seeing some other girl on the side. Perhaps even thinking about telling Jacob the truth when he next comes by. However, her bad behavior with a boy isn't something to be grounded over. You're taking out your hurt and anger at your ex out on her. That's not fair or good parenting. She's too old for that BS. If she was texting and driving, you would take her car keys because of safety. Staying out past curfew gets a phone taken. Being a bad girlfriend isn't a safety issue. If you failed as a parent and she doesn't get it, that cheating is bad, grounding her isn't going to teach her a lesson, except that you overreact and have anger management issues. Teens do stupid, selfish things. It's part of being hormonal and a young adult. Most will grow up and grow out of such behaviors, and 5 or 10 years down the line, she might very well be ashamed of herself. A couple more comments. One says, not the a-hole. Your post sounds like Lizzie's a daddy's girl, and he's been greenlighting her behavior. DOP replies, he's definitely the fun parent, Dad gives them money and takes them on trips while I do the actual parenting. My youngest needed a physical exam for soccer tryouts, and he couldn't even be bothered to do that. One more comment before we move on. Maybe it's time for Dad to take Lizzie most of the time and you enjoy her presence during the weekend and summers. I'd hate for her to influence the youngest to behave in such unscrupulous ways. Good luck, OP. You're a great mom. Maybe even consider telling Jacob or his parent about Lizzie's actions. When I got cheated on, I wish someone had told me sooner. Overall judgment, not the a-hole. Lizzie watched her dad nuke his marriage with infidelity, and instead of learning from it, he basically created a monster. You're not being unreasonable. You're trying to make sure she doesn't end up like her father. Update, 6 days later. I received a lot of good advice from my original post and wanted to provide an update. My daughter has been at her dad's house since my last post. I called her saying I'm reconsidering canceling her senior trip, but she needs to tell me what's going on with this new guy, Brandon. She reiterated that it's not that serious and she's just having fun. I told her she needs to decide which guy she actually wants to be with. She said she doesn't want Brandon, but he's fun and Jacob can be too serious and controlling. She likes how chill Brandon is. She kept saying she doesn't understand why I care so much, that I'm supposed to be on her side, and that I'm acting like Jacob is my child and not her. I told her that wasn't the issue. The issue is that cheating is wrong, and she's hurting Jacob, who she claims to love. She says she's not hurting him because he doesn't know about Brandon. I told her she's going to have to tell him, and only then will she be allowed to go on her senior trip. She said she couldn't do that. She still wants Jacob, but he can be annoying sometimes, and she needs a change of pace. I told her it was wrong to use both of these guys. I asked her if Brandon goes to the same school, and she said no, that he isn't in school at all. I tried pressing her on how old Brandon is, but she wouldn't give me a clear answer. She just kept saying that he's not that much older, but not in school. After the call, I contacted my ex-husband to express our concerns about this new guy and how secretive our daughter is being about him. He told me I needed to stop being a helicopter parent and let our daughter make her own mistakes and decisions about her love lives. I told him we don't know anything about this Brandon guy, and how can he not be concerned about him? He said he trusts our daughter and that she is nearly an adult and that I'm just being controlling and projecting my issues onto her. I told him with how little we know about this Brandon and her not willing to at least break up with Jacob, there's no way she's going on that senior trip. My ex-husband got upset saying I cannot make these decisions on my own and that she is with his daughter too. He then told me that he'll be paying for the full senior trip and that I need to back off if I want our daughter to ever come back home. Let's get some more comments, shall we? I think your mistake is you're speaking to your daughter about this in terms of how it is bad for Jacob. That's why she thinks you're acting like Jacob is your child and you're not on her side. You need to explain to her how your concern is about what this behavior is doing to her and your concerns about how she's going to get hurt when this blows up in her face. The next person says, she's also hurting herself. Doing the wrong thing becomes easier the more you do them. You corrupt yourself. Another thought says, your daughter learned from your ex that cheating is not a big deal, and many people commenting on your posts seem to think it's not your responsibility to teach your daughter right from wrong. I don't know if canceling the senior trip is the right move, but I do know that your daughter doesn't deserve to have a partner if this is how she treats them. And one more comment, let her live with her father. Let him deal with her sneaking around with an unknown man and the consequences that can happen from it. It sounds like your daughter doesn't fully grasp the weight of her actions, and a big part of that is likely your ex's attitude. He's dismissing your concerns as controlling because he doesn't want to acknowledge that bad decisions have consequences, just like he didn't when it came to your marriage. Unfortunately, that's the example she's been given. What would you do in this situation? Did OP take it too far? Up next, hindsight is 2020. Cheated on but no proof until nearly 4 years later. This one really had me effed up for a while until recently, now that I finally gotten the closure I needed. I had been in what I thought was a happy, long-distance relationship. I met her while at one of my schools early on at that time, so together could be maximized, which is exactly what happened. We had a fight every now and then, but nothing crazy. There were things for both of us to work on, what one would expect from people in their early 20s. We ended up getting engaged in 2018 during fall while we visited my family together. The last time we saw each other was in March of 2020 when I left for deployment. Unknown to both of us, it would proceed to become an extremely long deployment of about a year, but we were both committed, or so I thought. Every week I would buy about $200 of phone cards to ensure I could call the important members of my family, spending most of that on her. Getting the opportunity to talk to every one of them was important to me, I even used the email system to keep in contact. Everything was going well. I had my support back home. I was working to make myself better to ensure my health for the family her and I promised each other. December of 2020 rolls around, a week after Thanksgiving, when I receive an email from her stating we need to talk. No, I love you at the bottom of the message. Instantly felt drained and sick to my stomach, having fear of exactly what was happening. I wasn't able to talk to her immediately due to being on the opposite side of the world, and it wasn't until middle of the night in which I'm able to finally call to talk. What I ended up getting was I don't know what I want right now. I need to take a break. Please don't call me. I'll let you know when. I say this from a far removed but personal perspective. I was completely devastated. The privacy of my own rack was isolating, so instead I would stay awake for much longer hours than I should to be around friends instead. I stopped working out, I stopped talking, at times I stopped thinking and was not present mentally. December had both Christmas and her birthday, both events I was unable to contact this person who I trusted with my heart. It wasn't until a full month had passed that I broke the silence and ended up calling her for a direct answer. We broke up. She gave me zero closure, only stating she didn't love me anymore. This is the part that effed me up and proceeded to pervade nearly every relationship I had attempted from then on. How can one be so careless with love? Had I been lied to for the past couple of years? After the month of torture, not knowing what the outcome would be, being constantly in denial that it was over, how would I be able to let myself be so vulnerable again with another? To have the potential for my heart to be ripped out? All questions that had passed through my head. I didn't date properly for the next 3 years. I would express interest, go on a date, then fall off the earth with every single person as I couldn't get past the feeling of never being able to feel vulnerable. I kept in contact with her, I know, bad move, for some time, somewhat still seeking the closure I never got. I also followed the posts she had on Reddit. It was something I had done in our relationship since I had introduced her to it. I knew the account, so when we had been dating, I would secretly upvote her posts to help her feel better. In my snooping effort, I found out she had a boyfriend from a Reddit post shortly before I ended up returning to the States. I saved this post so I could more easily reference it for comments made on it by her, trying to get information for why it had ended. I thought it was odd or fishy, but there was nothing concrete. She had been cheated on before and had made many declarations she would never do that to another person. I still believed her. I ended up blocking her on everything except here once I found out she bought a house with the boyfriend in less than a year of visible dating, which to me seemed to point she had been with this person for far longer than what it looked like, but again, nothing concrete. After blocking her, I still thought about the relationship from time to time as I still had unresolved trauma from it preventing me from dating anyone long term. I ended up meeting my now girlfriend and felt so genuinely accepted and loved by her. Our conversations are upfront, but loving in that we're not afraid to tell the other when something is wrong and have no fear of repercussions in any form, and that is something I hadn't felt truly before outside of my immediate family. That's to say, regardless of my knowledge of what happened to me years ago, it meant nothing to the present I felt. I stopped thinking about my vulnerabilities as something to be protected and viewed them as something to be shared. A couple days ago, after I'd saved plenty of posts, I decided to take a look at what I had built up. I found the post I saved, and curiosity had gotten the better of me as I looked to see if anything had changed with my ex. Lo and behold, it had. I found out she had cheated on me, by her own words, and that she was struggling now in her relationship with the guy she cheated on me with. I'll admit, it felt good. I got the closure I didn't really need, but it was just good to be so right. She talked about all the sex they had while we were together, and it wasn't happening anymore. I couldn't help but laugh at my past self for being so naive about it all. I really dodged a bullet and fell into the arms of an angel. I felt pretty good about it all, like a cold case finally being closed, that I felt the need to share. If you made it this far, thanks for reading. Now she's stuck in a sexless relationship with the dude she cheated with? That's actually hilarious. She left a man who was literally calling from the other side of the world to be with someone who probably won't even call her from the next room. Guess that's the price she pays. What do you think? And thank you for joining us today on rSpace. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. See you soon.